Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Diplomacy, it is said, is the art of letting someone else have your way. Its success is measured by how one finds ways to influence others to align with their goals and interests as well as yours without making it explicit. If I had to exemplify this today, all I have to do is to tell you to read four-time Congress Member of Parliament Shashi Tharoor's opinion piece in a national daily. If you did not know who the author of this article, headlined Lessons from Operation Sindoor's Global Outreach, was, you would think it is a government brochure meant to advertise the I.N.D.I.A government's diplomacy, because the man who 6 years ago said that I.N.D.I.A's foreign policy is by whim, not by design, is today writing glowing testimonials for Narendra Modi. In his almost 1,200-word-long article, Tharoor has nothing but praise to offer for Prime Minister Modi and his tactic. Who would have thought that the words Prime Minister Narendra Modi's energy, dynamism and willingness to engage remains a prime asset for India on the global stage, but deserves greater backing, would come from someone who belongs to the party that has Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi at the helm. This is diplomacy at its finest, where critics become cheerleaders. The timing of this op-ed article is glaringly opportune, to say the least, because it comes just 2 days after chairperson of his party flagged the very same strategy. Sonia Gandhi also penned her opinion, slamming New Delhi's silence on the devastation in Gaza and the hostilities against Iran, calling it a disturbing departure from its moral and diplomatic traditions and calling it a surrender of values. But while Sonia Gandhi was trying to dictate how to conduct global dialogue, her party members were busy quoting movie dialogues, from scripting songs mocking Modi and chanting the surrender raga to mouthing lines from the film Sholay. They are doing it all to find loopholes in the way the government has dealt with the changing world scenario. Listen in.
पार्टी की एक सीमा है, पार्टी की एक मर्यादा है, और हम ये उम्मीद करते हैं कि जितने भी कांग्रेस के जो सांसद हैं उनको अपनी मर्यादा, अपनी सीमा के अंदर रहना ज्यादा बेहतर होता। तो आज के परिप्रेक्ष्य में एक एसेट बतलाना मैं समझता हूं कि कहीं से भी उचित नहीं था।
ಎಂದು ಮೋದಿ ಅವರು ಬಾಯಿ ಬಿಚ್ಚಿ ಹೇಳಿಲ್ಲ, ಅವರು ಹೇಳೋದು ಒಂದೇ, ನಾನು ವಿಶ್ವಗುರು ಇದ್ದೀನಿ।
गजा के बाद जहां इतने निर्दोष नागरिकों को मारा गया, गजा के बाद लगातार इजराइल बमबारी कर रहा, अलग अलग देशों पर बमबारी कर रहा, भारत चुप रहा। अमेरिका ने ईरान पर पूरी वायु शक्ति का अपना प्रदर्शन किया, भारत चुप रहा। भारत की चुप्पी भारत को कमजोर बनाती है।
तीसरा महायुद्ध भी हो सकता है, तो इस स्थिति पे, इस कगार पर हमारी भूमिका भी इस बारे में स्पष्ट होनी चाहिए। यही सोनिया जी ने कहा है। मैंने ये तो हो गया, शोले जैसा हो गया हमारी स्थिति। आधे शोले का पिक्चर था, आधे इधर जाओ, आधे उधर जाओ, बाकी मेरे पीछे आओ। तो पीछे मुड़ के देखा तो कोई नहीं था। तो यह स्थिति पर मत लाओ देश को।
This is not the first time that one sees the Congress leaders living in denial. Their experiments with truth, unlike those of Mahatma Gandhi, are increasingly about playing with falsehoods. But reality checks, like the one offered by Shashi Tharoor today, are like B2 bunker buster bombs. They find a way to penetrate through the lies perpetrated by them. Whether it is admitting that Modi is a prime asset for India who needs more backing, or correcting the Congress's narrative that Modi surrendered India's interest by agreeing to a ceasefire, the truth bombs have been busting Congress party almost as often as Israeli strikes on Iran. Just last week, its spokespersons were circulating a morphed image mocking Prime Minister at G7, but were called out very quickly. Then Jairam Ramesh was found waving a January readout from White House to contradict Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri. And Russia had to strike down Pawan Khera's endorsement of an article suggesting it had signed a multi-million deal with Pakistan. Supriya Srine, who claimed India had abandoned its citizens in Iran, can speak to rescued Indian nationals who arrived in Delhi even today at 7:30 p.m. as part of Operation Sindhu. And this is not the first batch that has come back. And that, by the way, saw an embattled Iran opening its airspace as an exception for India. And you know how much of a joke it was made of when Ukraine and Russia did the same. Remember, such has been the propensity of Congress party to peddle lies that Ministry of External Affairs had to set up a fact-check handle just to sift truth from propaganda. It happened after Congress said that Saudi Arabia had denied visas to Indians. So is fakery Congress's only asset?
थरूर ने फिर से आईना दिखाया है और रियलिटी चेक दिया है राहुल गांधी को। राहुल गांधी आज भी झूठ फैला रहे हैं। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर के बारे में कह रहे हैं कि सरेंडर है, छुटपुट है, फेलियर है। पर शशि थरूर जी ने एक आर्टिकल लिखकर कहा है कि किस प्रकार से ऑपरेशन सिंदूर का आउटरीच हो, हमारी फॉरेन पॉलिसी हो या मोदी जी की ऊर्जा हो, उनकी डिप्लोमेटिक एंगेजमेंट हो, ये एक प्राइम एसेट की तरह थी। पर राहुल गांधी तो पाकिस्तान के प्राइम एसेट की तरह बोलते हैं।
गैंडी है नाम मेरा, चोरी है काम मेरा, गैंडी है नाम मेरा, चोरी है काम मेरा। मैं देश का चुराऊं, मैं देश का चुराऊं, मैं कांग्रेस डुबाऊं, मैं चोरी चोरी चीन से नैना मिलाऊं, जो नैना मिलाऊं तो नैन चुराऊं। मजा आया? सच्चाई थी ये, चीन से नैना मिलाओ, चोरी करो, कांग्रेस डुबाओ।
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the legitimate question, the Motorola legitimate question on the Newshour tonight. With Tharoor hailing Prime Minister and his tactics, have Congress's experiments with truth been busted by its own? That's the question and that's the debate on the other side.
You're watching the Newshour at 9. Debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Joining the debate tonight, Siddharth Yadav, National Spokesperson of the BJP, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, Senior Fellow at the IPCS, Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow at the ORF, both strategic affairs experts. Also joining the debate, Faizan Kidwai, National Spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party, Professor Anwar Pasha, National Spokesperson of the RJD. But my first question goes to Sanjay Jha, author, Congress leader. And Sanjay Jha, what should I ask you? आज खुश तो बहुत होगे तुम कि प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने आज शशि थरूर का आर्टिकल रीट्वीट किया है। खुश तो बहुत होगे तुम।
Navika, good evening. I think Mr. Modi, India's Prime Minister, retweeting Sashi's article is like a desperate man clutching at a straw. Anyone who's followed India's diplomatic disasters over the last couple of weeks will tell you that Mr. Modi happens to be, unfortunately, India's highest non-performing asset as we talk. Let's get down to the specifics and skip the rhetoric. Shashi is a great friend, so is Manish, and they made this overseas delegation trip, call it a jamboree or a carousel, whichever word appears appropriate. Guess what happened? Despite all the hype and the hoopla, I'll give you 5 instances of what happened while the trip was on. General Asim Munir has a luncheon with President Donald Trump. First time an army chief, not an executive head of state, an army chief whom we blamed for triggering the Pahalgam massacre is having lunch with the President of the United States, who, by the way, did not deem it appropriate or respectful enough to meet Mr. Modi during the G7 summit at Alberta. Number 2, Pakistan becomes the UN Security Council vice chair for counter-terrorism. I mean, how can anybody, including Shashi, say that their trip was a success? It wasn't. Point number 3, Pakistan becomes the chair in the UN Security Council's Taliban Sanctions Committee. Point number 4, during the time when we should have been working our, shall we say, diplomatic engines all over the place, Pakistan gets an IMF loan. Number 5, Pakistan gets an ADB loan, the Asian Development Bank loan. And last but not the least, this government, which allowed Pakistan to get out of the Financial Action Task Force in October 2022, is merely continuing with this old rhetoric of saying that we have done everything that we could do. The truth, Navika, is this, that Donald Trump has repeated it 10 times, not just the ceasefire, that Pakistan is a reliable and a safe bet for US going forward. You even have that statement made by the US State Department that said that Pakistan has done a phenomenal job as a counter-terror partner of the United States. So let me ask this question of the BJP and its sympathizers on your show. If the United States, whom Mr. Modi said is an abki bar Trump Sarkar kind of a government, is today openly backing Pakistan as its reliable instrument for Middle East policy or Afghanistan, whatever it may be, the truth is India stands diplomatically checkmated under the most
Sanjay
incompetent
Jha, I've indulged you for 4 minutes because I thought at some point you would have a reality check and you would make sense. I'm surprised. I've always put your intelligence above the average congressman's intelligence, but alas, today, wasted opportunity. Because I want to ask you, Trump saying it at 10 times, you're saying exactly what spokespersons of the Congress party say. Trump has said many things. He has said he's brokering peace in the world. Please look at the 3 wars that have happened. Trump said that, he is going to get Iran to give up its nuclear weapons, and then goes after saying in all his election speeches that he is against war, he goes and bombs Iran. So, stop taking what Trump says as the gospel truth, and it will augur well for you. But the question I want to bring in at this point is, Sonia Gandhi writes a whole piece, a whole edit page article to say what India has not done on Gaza and on Iran. I want to ask her, where was she? Why did she not write a single piece when Pahalgam happened? Why did she not write a single piece when Pakistan crossed the line, used terror again as a state warcraft against India? Why was she silent then? Was that also vote bank politics by Sonia Gandhi, just as Iran and Gaza are today? And I want to bring in Sushant Sareen because there are many diplomatic and strategic issues that you've raised. And I want to get Sushant Sareen before I get in Siddharth Yadav for the political point. And Sushant, the 5 pointers that have been made by Sanjay Jha, why do they ring so hollow and completely bereft of any logic or strategic knowledge?
Navika, frankly, all the 5 points that Sanjay has raised, I thought he would come up with something new. He is regurgitating the same old points which are the Congress ecosystem has been peddling for the last almost 2 months now, and it's repeated. I thought they would have got bored by it and moved on to something else. But if you want, I can clarify each one of them and I can fact check Sanjay on each one of those. Now, on the Asim Munir lunch, now if Sanjay is very happy with the lunch given to Asim Munir because the Americans want to use the Pakistanis for a specific purpose, the Pakistanis are ready to be used, would Sanjay want that India also be used in a similar way by the Americans against a country with which we have some relations? What are we trying to do? We are trying to walk the fine line between 2 friendly countries. Pakistan is trying to suck up to the Americans and trying to do the mercenary thing, which is what they've always done. Now, would Sanjay want us to do something like that? And then see the kind of embarrassment that on one day he gives him lunch, the Pakistanis pretend that they have made Donald Trump hold his bombing campaign in Iran and that they are now going to play a central role in the Middle East. And they are going to be the top dogs out there. and a day later, Trump goes and bombs Iran, and the Pakistanis have egg on their face. Would Sanjay want India to do something like this? Second, he talks again, the same old talking points. IMF, World Bank, ADB. These are programs which have been going on for many, many years. These are not new programs. There is nothing new in it. And in any case, what Pakistan's relationship is with India does not necessarily affect how the IMF is going to deal with Pakistan, because Pakistan is a member of the IMF on the UN Security Council. Since Pakistan happens to be on the Security Council, it made a pitch for that particular position. It got it because maybe others were not interested. There was no way that anybody could have stopped Pakistan from getting it. You have to be realistic about how international relations work. The other point which Sanjay makes is again, the same G7. Now, Trump left G7 midway. He didn't leave it because he didn't want to meet Modi. He left it before Modi reached Alberta. Now, are you saying that Trump should leave everything and wait for Modi? Modi reaches, then he should have a bilateral with Modi. And but what is this how you look at foreign policy and how you want to deal with foreign policy? And finally, I would imagine that you need to come up with something newer and fresher. There are many issues on which you can be critical of the government. You can be critical of government ministers who say that there are countries in ASEAN who are working as B teams of China. You don't say this publicly. This is a diplomatic disaster. You are shooting yourself in the foot. But if you have a foot in mouth disease, as some of the ministers have, then that is a point of a valid criticism against this government. But taking the kind of pot shots the congressmen or people from the Congress...
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I wonder, and Faizan Kidwai, I wonder why Asim Munir's lunch with Trump has become such a big deal for the opposition. Simply because I would think it is a pathetic thing for Pakistan to do. It just shows that the uniform is more important than the charade of democracy that Pakistan is parading. And then, as Sushant Sareen pointed out, they were championing the cause of Nobel Peace Prize for Trump. And then look what happened. Today there are protests in Pakistan against the US bombing of Iran, and the Pakistanis don't know where to hide. Asim Munir is being called a man who has sold out Pakistan and the Islamic world together to the United States of America. Are you saying that that foreign policy and diplomacy is better than India's? Really?
See, good evening, Navika. Good evening to you and to the fellow panelists. And please give me an uninterrupted time. Don't cut me midway, because it becomes very inconvenient for Bharatiya Janata Party people
90 seconds,
to
go on. I will not interrupt.
So, Navika, I am least bothered what Pakistan is doing. I am worried about how India is going ahead. See, Mr. Modi's diplomacy, like Mr. Shashi Tharoor praised him today. I mean, he has all the right to praise whoever he wants. But Mr. Tharoor, there are 3 T's you spoke about. So there are 3 T's you should keep yourself away from. That is treachery, turncoatism and transactional politics. I'm sure you are aware how BJP people, even Narendra Modi trolled you, abused your late wife while accusing you for IPL scam. So Mr. Tharoor has forgotten all those things. Good for him. He has all the right to be in whichever party and change his ideology the way he wants, the way he thinks is best for himself. See, Navika, when we are questioning our Prime Minister, we are questioning him on valid reasons. You just see the trade deficit of India has increased by 17.76%. The trade deficit with China has gone up by 16.61%. With Russia, 17.13%. These are alarming situations. We have to ask Narendra Modi, what exactly are you doing on diplomatic front? This is because of Narendra Modi that India failed to maintain strategic alignment with US, because of which Pakistan was able to regain the favors it has lost earlier. Narendra Modi failed to build a consensus against Pakistan and forced the Financial Action Task Force to name Pakistan directly for Pahalgam attacks against India and put it in grey list. This has weakened India's position in the South Asian geopolitics. And we, as Indians, we should be very concerned, Navika, because a lot of things Mr. Narendra Modi promised, those things have failed. Mr. Modi's pet project, Make in India, Digital India, has failed. It has failed to get investments. It has underperformed. As a result, FDI has fallen from $10.1 billion to just $353 million. Not only foreign companies are pulling out of India, but even Indian firms are now investing abroad. What will eventually happen? And if you see these things collectively, Navika, these setbacks demonstrate that Modi's diplomacy is far from being a prime asset for India, as Mr. Tharoor said. So Mr. Tharoor needs to introspect and understand what exactly he is doing. And we as Indians are concerned, and anyone who's not concerned and not asking the Prime Minister tough questions, that person, I'm sure, I'm very sorry to say, I don't use very hard words like anti-national, but that person is not acting in the national interest.
Oh, just because Shashi Tharoor calls the Prime Minister a national asset and a big asset for India, now suddenly he's become anti-national. Faizan Kidwai, I expected better from you. I expected better from you. But when the world is falling apart, when there are wars across the world, suddenly trade is something that is worrying you so much. Siddharth Yadav, please respond to both Sanjay Jha and Faizan Kidwai.
Navika, I think few panelists sitting here on your show and few other spokespersons and leaders of few political parties of the country are doing a disservice to the nation. When we are in critical times, one would expect their citizens of any country to be honest, to be, even if you want to be critical, then be critical about realistic things. But the same rhetoric that we have been listening to over the past, more than a month on television channels, the failed rhetoric of the Congress party and the all the alliance partners of I.N.D.I.A about what has Pakistan been given, Pakistan is this, Pakistan is that, that Pakistan parasti, the prem of Pakistan that comes out, Pakistan ko lunch mila, Pakistan ko IMF mila, all have been answered again and again, and they know what the truth is. But they would continue to raise all such rhetoric questions, baseless allegations, just because they want to weaken India's position. And that is why I wish your viewers, and I wish also Sanjay Jha and all the panelists to go back and retrospect what was Pakistan's position when India had given them the status of most favored nation. What was the Pakistan's position? What were relations of Pakistan with America when we were facing most number of terrorist attacks between 2004 to 2014? Pakistan received a bailout of the IMF in November 2008. You remember November 2008? It was the time when India faced the deadliest Mumbai attacks. 166 people lost their lives and Pakistan received $7.6 billion. $7.6 billion. What did you do then? When you know what the reality is, when you know what the truth is, despite that, if someone from a political party, any leader, I'm not naming any leader, but if someone chooses to go on foreign soil in a delegation, of our country, of Bharat, and chooses to speak facts, chooses to speak in favor of the country, they are called super spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party. They are called that this delegation is a Bharat. The Bharat should be boycotted. And I'm quoting from our senior leaders of the opposition. So if this is what you think India's diplomacy should be, or this is what you think your service to the nation should be, then I think this is, pure disservice to the nation. Point number one. Point number two, when you try to bring in that companies are not investing in India and companies are trying to pull out their funds, I think, this is your frustration speaking. One should go back and check how many unicorns did we have before 2014? How many businesses were flourishing in India before 2014? Now, when the entire scenario has changed, when India has emerged as a leader of the global south, when we have emerged, as a leader in the world, which the world looks up to, when we are contributing to the 48% of digital transactions in the world, when we have taken out 25 crore people out of extreme poverty, when we are able to provide for our people, give them basic amenities, the frustration of the Congress party and all these opposition parties who have been unable to do so for so many years comes out. I think Congress party and the opposition should awaken from this. You want to be critical, talk about policies, come out with things that you think
absolutely you want to find chinks in the armor, please do so. You want to raise questions, please do so, but at least those questions have to be in the context of what's happening in the world today. And I want to bring in Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, are we forgetting the world that we are living in? I'm not only blaming the opposition, because even the BJP, when Siddharth Yadav says, look at the number of unicorns, look at the investments, yes, it's been good so far, but the current situation should worry every Indian. What's the road ahead is something that we all need to sit back and worry about. But instead of sitting and looking at that road ahead, we've had it good so far. But is it going to be this good? Are we looking at oil price hikes? Is that going to wipe off 1 or 1.5 percentage points from our GDP growth? These are scenarios that we need to look at. But instead, what are we doing? We are looking at pulling each other down and in a totally mindless manner, as the opposition in India is doing. Where do you think the truth really lies, Abhijit? Somewhere in the middle?
I'm afraid it's not somewhere in the middle. The problem here is, I take the SP gentleman's criticism very well. There is a lot to do on the economy, a lot of liberalization to be done. But when the farm laws were enacted, who opposed it? When the labor laws were enacted, who opposed it? When the new land laws were tried to get enacted, who opposed it? See, you can't be like Pakistan, hunting with the hounds and running with the hares. You oppose every piece of reform that comes in, and then, you want to continue. I mean, it's Samajwadi Party means what? Socialist Party. You want socialism to continue, but then, you criticize it on the basis of a market economy. Aise to nahi chalega, na? Now, let me go to the specific criticisms, because this is very curious. I am actually right now on the IMF lending page. Do you know the highest annual lending of the IMF to Pakistan happened when the former leader of the SP, Mulayam Singh Yadav ji, was Defense Minister of India. In October 20, 1997, not one but two loans were given in that October, totaling about 1 million SDR. Do you know the biggest single loan given to Pakistan ever was happened from 2008, November 24, 2008 to September 30, 2011, totaling about 7 million SDRs. The second biggest tranche was given between 2013 and 2016. Who was in power at that time? So honestly, I don't agree that, the government in power in India is responsible for the IMF giving loans. But what was Mulayam Singh Yadav ji doing when he was defense minister, sitting in the Security Committee of Cabinet? What was Manmohan Singh ji doing when they were sitting in the Security Committee of Cabinet? Second, if this has been such an absolute disaster, like Sanjay Jha says, and by the way, congratulations to you, Navika. After 6 years of asking Sanjay a question and not getting an answer, your unbroken record continues. But let me continue with this. When Kargil happened, is Kargil a defeat because Nawaz Sharif got to spend a whole week in Blair House being wined and dined by Bill Clinton? Now, in 1965, what happened? We were attacked by the Pakistanis. What did the Americans do? They imposed sanctions on both of us. Was that such a great triumph for India? In 1971, it got even worse. When Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister, they actually sent their aircraft carrier against us. They moved resolutions against us, which the USSR had to veto. George Bush Sr., the father who preceded Clinton, called India the aggressor when he was moving those resolutions in the UN Security Council. In 1948, when Nehru was Prime Minister, Dean Rusk was openly calling for sanctioning India. The British officers were commanding the Pakistan army. That wasn't a disaster. But apparently this is a disaster. Now tell me, see, everything is relative. I will completely agree with Sanjay Jha that this was a disaster. If you can show me on a scale how this was a relative disaster. I will completely agree with our friend from SP. I didn't interrupt. I will completely agree with our friend from the SP that this BJP is totally anti-national. If he can show me how Manmohan Singh and Mulayam Singh Yadav were any less anti-national for approving the two biggest tranches and the two quickest tranches of loans to Pakistan ever given.
Can I quickly answer it?
Okay, Sanjay Jha first. Anwar Pasha, I'm coming to you. Sanjay Jha first. And also, Sanjay Jha, while you're answering that, please, in 2005, the IAEA resolution on non-compliance, India votes against Iran. Today, you're asking questions on why we are not opening our mouth. You voted against Iran. What happened to our foreign policy then? What happens to Sonia Gandhi's article? And then, twice in 2007 and 2006, we have abstained from a vote. So what was that then? Was that not a calculation on a diplomatic and strategic level when we did not vote either against or for Iran?
Navika, I'll answer it very succinctly. Point number one, General VP Malik, since I think Abhijit mentioned about the Kargil war, let me remind Abhijit that General VP Malik, who was the general during the Kargil war, went on record when the military ceasefire was announced with Pakistan by Donald Trump, may I repeat that again for the benefit of your viewers, saying what was the whole purpose of the operation if it was called off so abruptly. It's a tweet in the public domain. And this comes from the highest decorated military officer of our country. Point number two, you have a situation where this government, Navika, is so opaque, has little respect for the opposition in our country simply because they are in power. Can you imagine they did not even take the opposition into confidence on many aspects of the operation? And it took General Chauhan, and hats off to him for being transparent and honest when he was in Singapore during the Shangri-La conference. And he told a couple of media people that, yes, India did encounter difficulties and may have lost a few fighter jets. I mean, it was not going to be a death knell for India's performance. But this government
took 7 delegations. They briefed each one of these delegations. And you're still calling the government opaque, Sushant Sareen. Now, I mean, what do you do? Kitni aarti utarni padegi for them to be convinced?
So, look, you can't convince them because they don't want to be convinced, which is fair enough. That is the way they will do their politics. I don't grudge them that. But I would only hope that they would speak on facts. Now, General Malik could have tweeted whatever he tweeted. That does not mean that he is necessarily the repository of all the wisdom in the world, especially at this point in time. And I'll tell you the reason why, and this is despite enormous respect for General Malik, and the services he has rendered, and I know him personally. But I'll tell you the reason why. When people say, what was the reason for calling a ceasefire? The reason was that the operations objectives had been achieved. You took out the terror bases, that was the objective number one, and the objective number two was that if Pakistanis hit back, you are going to control the escalation dominance. Now, once you achieve both the objectives and the other side sues for peace, then quite clearly you have to be utterly stupid to continue with a fight which is not in your interest because you don't want to get into a long drawn-out conflict at this point in time when you have other very important objectives to try and meet, including of the economy. So I would imagine that it takes a lot of sense for someone to say, okay, fine, I've achieved what I wanted. I'm not going to step back. I'm not going to go further. Just as Mrs. Gandhi did not pursue with taking back the entire POK when Indian forces in 1971 were dominant. We had already broken Pakistan. Pakistan was demoralized. It was on its last legs. And yet she stopped where she stopped. There were other pressures also. But I think she did a sensible thing at that point of time. That is point number one. The second point which Sanjay was making, I've forgotten what the second point he was making was.
General Chauhan speaking in Singapore.
So, okay. And Sanjay, out there are two viewpoints to it. I am of the viewpoint that, look, even if you have suffered a loss, I don't see any reason why you need to hide it. In fact, you should be open about it and you should say, okay, fine, if I had lost 2 or 3 aircraft, I'm going to come back with even a greater force and beat the hell out of you. I am of that view. Okay. I'm not embarrassed by losses in combat and I don't even feel that there is any reason to hide it. But there is another viewpoint which says that, look, you are in an active combat situation. There is no reason to tell the other side what your losses have been. And there is no reason even now to tell them, we will disclose that particular information when the time comes and we will do it.
Exactly. The time and the details will be of the choosing of the nation, in its own interest. Why should it be at the call of even if it is the opposition within the country? But since you talk about VP Malik, I want to take that question to Professor Anwar Pasha. Anwar Pasha ji, VP Malik is being quoted. Let me also tell you that VP Malik Since 1971, VP Malik has said, we have never ever accepted any outside mediation since 1971, which is true for 2025 as well. So you can't have a situation where you believe him partially, but do not believe him for the point on the ceasefire. And that is exactly what the Congress party is doing. I want to ask you, should foreign policy be based on कि कितनी सीटी बज रही है, ताली बज रही है कि नहीं बज रही है? Because as you see the world today, it is a tightrope walk. Nobody is anybody's friend. Everybody is looking out for their own self in the current day world. Whether it is Russia, whether it is Ukraine, whether it is China, whether it is the United States, Israel or Iran. Everybody is looking out for themselves. In the middle of all of this, do you think you have to give a report card on a daily basis to your own Prime Minister when he is doing the tough balancing act?
Navika ji, we are discussing and we are debating over the article of Shri Shashi Tharoor ji. We all know what the stand has been, and I think there must be some reason behind the change of heart of Shashi Tharoor ji. This is the fact, because Shashi Tharoor ji was the part of that global outreach program of our country, of our government. We had 7 groups of our MPs, delegates, who visited various countries in the world. My question is that, was it at all needed? Why there was a delegation for the global outreach? Is it not the failure of our diplomacy? If it was not failure, then why we sent people there? Our Prime Minister visited more than 100, I think he made more than 100 visits to the world, the various countries. What kind of diplomacy he was discussing with the people of with the head of those nations? Our Foreign Minister, he visited various countries for the last so many years. We have spent so many money of the taxpayers on the visit of Prime Minister, on the visit of the delegates, MPs for the global outreach. What we have achieved? What we have achieved? My question is that all those questions are very valid, raised by other panelists.
Valid questions. Siddharth Yadav, I give you time to try and convince Professor Anwar Pasha. क्योंकि अब तक जो भी हुआ है, you have not been able to convince the opposition. How will you try to do it today?
Navika, I think if you're going to give me that responsibility, probably I will fail, because the opposition, despite any honest efforts that anybody would make, I do not think that they are ready to understand or stand with the country in any such case. And I'll just point-wise answer what my friend Professor Anwar Pasha was saying. In 1994, the then government chose the leader of opposition, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, to go and represent India in the United Nations against a resolution which was brought in by Pakistan. Did the opposition come out and say that you have failed your diplomacy, that a LOP has to go? Did we ever say that? Did any political party ever say that? The LOP chose and we said, okay, whatever the brunt may be, if probably Atalji had failed,
that's the beauty of our diplomacy and the democracy.
And I was not speaking while you were speaking, sir. I was not speaking while you were speaking. Please have the courtesy to hear me out. The Atal Bihari Vajpayee then also had, would have felt the pressure that if he fails, the then government could easily say that it's the LOP who went to UN and now the resolution doesn't stand cancelled and now sanctions are imposed. So blame the LOP. But despite that, he chose that task and he said, no, I have to do it for my country, and he went and did it. After 2008 in Mumbai, the government sent few delegations, all party delegations. Did we say? This is very recent. Did anybody say that the government's or the country's diplomacy has failed and that is why delegations are going? You have crossed all limits to doing disservice to this country. All limits. You, for your politics, for the politics of the opposition, you would bring up any argument and demean the position of India on any international front so that domestically you can benefit yourself. And for that, you viewers, for Navika, for your viewers, I'll just give you 3 examples. Professor Anwar Pasha, please have the courtesy to hear me out. I'll just give you 3 examples of what happened after 2008 and what happened after 2025. In 2008, when Pakistan attacked Mumbai, what did Indian government do? In 2009, we did a joint statement with Pakistan. Moreover, we accepted our hand in Balochistan. In 2013, we opened FDI for Pakistan. In 2013 only, we made a visa liberalized scheme. Our foreign ministers met with Pakistan. That is India's response after terrorist attacks. What has happened after 2025? We suspended the Indus-Water Treaty. We cancelled all visas of Pakistan. We made all their nationals go out. We crossed the international border and we bombed them. And despite that, there is no UN Security Council resolution against us. No statement by the Organization of Islamic Countries. No delegation of the world of any country coming to our country. This is the path that we have covered. This is the true picture of India's strength and India's diplomacy. But opposition would never want to understand this, Navika. And therefore, I know your viewers understand it better and probably the entire country understands it better, but the opposition can never understand it because they are dominated by the thought of
is their finger only on scoring political brownie points? And that is the question many are asking. But we did a short survey on social media. Should the opposition agree with Shashi Tharoor that Prime Minister Modi is prime asset for India? Yes said 81% of the people, no said 16% of the people, 3% of the people did not have a view, but 81% of the people believed that the Prime Minister is an asset in the manner in which he has navigated India's foreign policy. And ladies and gentlemen, we're not talking in the air. We're talking about very, very evident, proof of what India has been able to do with Prime Minister Modi leading the country. We've had, in the past, Indian students being pulled out of Ukraine and Russia by stopping firing for some time. It is again that particular way in which we have taken out our student community, our Indians settled in Iran, when the war had been called. When missiles were flying thick and fast between Israel and Iran. If this is not a success in foreign policy, then what is? And that is the question very often the opposition completely misses out. The fact that Asim Munir was called for lunch should actually go out as a red flag because democracy clearly completely dead in Pakistan. And Pakistan was selling its own air bases for the use of the United States. While in India, we continue to maintain completely sacrosanct India's sovereignty without allowing other powers to use us only as military bases. Is that not something that should be appreciated? That is the question people of India should think about. Is the opposition only trying to criticize? Because that's what opposition is supposed to do. Is it as simple as that? Well, think about it. Thank you very much to all my panelists for joining me on debate number 1.